I want you to think about the American justice system. Consider all the steps, checks and balances, protections in place to ensure that the innocent go free and the guilty are brought to justice. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt seems like such an impossible bar to reach. Surely no innocent defendant would end up behind bars. But that's exactly what has happened. Or at least that's what one defendant wants you to believe. The story starting now on Serial.
This is a Global Tel-Link prepaid call from
Adam Smith,
an inmate at a Buckeye State Correctional Facility. To accept charges and connect, press 1. If you do not wish to connect, press 2.
I mean, you're either gonna believe me or you're not. You know what I'm saying? I just know what I know, and that's that I didn't do it.
For the past year, I've been obsessed with one case. More accurately, I've been obsessed with a single day in a single case, trying to figure out how long it takes to drive a single route after school on a single day in September 1998. But this route, this time, this is what it all comes down to. It's the difference between innocence and guilt. On October 6th, 1999, 18-year-old Adam Smith was convicted of the murder of Haley Lee, his ex-girlfriend and classmate at Trillium High School. Adam has maintained his innocence all these years and has told anyone who will listen that he got a bad deal. He appealed his case, but no luck. I was a student at Trillium High School 15 years ago, not long after Adam Smith went to prison, and even 5 years later it was still a big deal. A legend. But something never sat right with me. I knew people who knew Adam, and every single one always said the same thing. He just doesn't seem like the type who could do something like this. Now, I know what you're thinking. A gut feeling is hardly enough for an exoneration, but bear with me. What if Adam really was innocent? What if the system failed Adam? I decided to learn everything I could about the case, pick it apart piece by piece, and see if it added up. I sent Adam a letter and asked him to call me. Okay, we're recording.
You've no idea how long I've waited for a call like this. I kept feeling like someone had to notice, you know? Like someone had to see that this was all just a huge mistake.
But Adam, you have to understand, this just doesn't sound right, you know? Like, how are people supposed to believe that the system got it wrong? The cops, the prosecutor, the judge, jury, and appeals court? Like, how could all those people make such a huge mistake?
I mean, you're either gonna believe me or you're not. You know what I'm saying? I just know that I just didn't do it. That's all I know. That's all I can say.
Adam went on like this for a while. He'd had almost 20 years to think about how unfair everything was, how the whole thing went down. I kept coming back to the how. How did it all go so wrong? Adam had an answer.
My attorney.
What do you mean?
I know she worked hard, but she was sick, you know? I mean, she just wasn't at her best.
You seem troubled. This is hard for you. I mean, Adam, you're saying it's her fault. Her fault. You're in this mess. You gotta back that up, you know?
I can't speak ill of the dead. I just can't.
Adam's attorney, Christina Munoz, passed away back in 2010, but not before being disbarred for misuse of client funds. Adam doesn't want to speak ill of the dead, but let me share this. Christina was a bulldog in the courtroom, but as the years went on, a progressive illness got in the way of her ability to represent clients. Law clerks at the time described Christina as overworked and overextended. She was tackling multiple capital murder cases in 2 different states, but that steady work pace was beginning to break her apart. In the end, Adam fell through the cracks. Adam was convicted of Haley's murder, and Christina helped him to appeal that conviction. But they lost that appeal too. If you believe the law clerks working for Christina at the time, it's not hard to understand why. She filed briefs late, didn't review important evidence, and wasn't in top form when it mattered most.
No one can understand, you know? I mean, when you're in that situation, facing a conviction, you need your attorney. You rely on them. Your life is literally in their hands.
But Adam, she failed you. Christina didn't do her job, and this is where you are.
The whole system failed me. And Haley. I mean, I don't forget that. Like, Haley's killer is still out there. And I'm here.
The system failed Adam the first time around, but he's getting one more chance. One Hail Mary pass to reverse what went wrong all those years ago. And in a weird way, it's actually thanks to Christina. The Buckeye Court of Common Pleas has agreed to hear Adam's petition for post-conviction relief. It's just a fancy way of saying one last chance. In his motion for post-conviction relief, Adam's attorneys argued that Christina's trial performance was so bad that it violated Adam's Sixth Amendment right to assistance of counsel, which could be Adam's ticket to a new trial. A claim like this does something kind of odd in the legal field. We're used to seeing the prosecution go first, having to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. But here Adam goes first. Adam has to prove that the result could have been different, so he bears the burden of proof this time around. I'm not an attorney, and a lot of this is outside my wheelhouse, so I asked a friend who works in criminal law to sit down and talk to me about this case. All right, I'm going to hit record, okay?
All right.
Okay, so tell the listeners who you are.
I'm Susan Simpson, a criminal trial attorney here in Buckeye.
Great, so I sent you some files to review, right? How's it going?
It's going okay. Adam's attorneys at the hearing will need to show that his attorney at trial botched the trial, and that she botched it in such a way that it could have made a difference in the outcome.
Okay, so Adam's attorneys get a chance to retry this part, right? So they can do what they think Christina should have done the first time around?
Not really. This hearing isn't his new trial. It's Adam arguing that he should get a new trial. I mean, his attorneys will get to call witnesses, they'll make arguments, but their job isn't to retry the case. Their job is to show that what Christina did was wrong and that it made a difference in the outcome.
Okay, Susan, let me make sure I understand. Two parts. One, Christina screwed up, and then two, she's the reason Adam lost the trial?
Sort of. Ineffective assistance of counsel is two-pronged. First, the attorney's performance fell below an objective standard of reasonableness. And second, there is a reasonable probability that but for the attorney's performance, the outcome would have been different.
The court has already agreed that Christina's performance was deficient, prong one of this two-part test. Now his legal team needs to prove the second part, that Christina's mistakes mattered. In other words, if it weren't for Christina making those mistakes, his case might have turned out differently. Notice I didn't say would, but might have. So what were those mistakes? What things did Christina mess up so badly that Adam should get a do-over? Adam's attorneys are pinning this whole case on two things: a possible alibi never explored, and some tricky cell phone evidence that might have been mishandled. It might be hard to picture this today, but back in '98, every high school kid wasn't glued to a cell phone 24 hours a day. Cell phones were rare and pricey. On the day in question, Adam had a brand new cell phone, fresh out of the box. And that cell phone, or at least the location of that cell phone, was the evidence the state used to put Adam away for life.
Adam's team is going to claim that Christina didn't handle the cell phone evidence correctly.
How so?
Like she didn't ask the expert the right questions, didn't push hard enough on the science, didn't hire her own experts to come in and provide an alternate explanation. Basically, didn't do a good job establishing that the evidence was unreliable and unscientific.
Okay, so how do you do that? I mean, Christina's gone. Who testifies about that now? Can they just read the trial transcripts?
Adam's attorneys aren't witnesses, so it's not going to be just his new lawyers lecturing the judge. Adam's attorneys are going to call the expert who testified in the first trial to talk about what happened, the kind of questions Christina asked, and the expert's impressions of the case now, asking if that witness's conclusions might be different based on the evidence they know now.
So basically, they're looking to prove that Christina wasn't good at cross. That's it? That's all it takes to get Adam a new trial?
I mean, it could be, if it's bad enough. It could be. But I don't think Adam's team would bank on that.
Proving Christina asked the wrong questions might not be enough, so Adam's team has another ace up their sleeve. They're also going to explore a possible alibi that Christina didn't look into, even after Adam told her about it. Randy Johnson, the teacher who ran homework help, still to this day is certain that Adam was in homework help on the 18th, even says there is a record of it. Or at least there was, if you'd asked him for it 19 years ago. Adam told his attorney all this back at his first trial, but Christina never followed up. This time around, almost 20 years later, his new attorneys did. So, big deal, right? One teacher claims Adam was in homework help on the 18th. How does that matter? Well, homework help just happens to line up with the time the state claims Adam was murdering Haley. So what's the state doing with all this?
Well, the state has to prove that what Christina did either wasn't wrong or didn't matter.
I don't get it. I mean, how could it not matter? Like, you screw up a trial, that matters, right?
No, and I know that's such a lawyer answer, but not necessarily. Look, we aren't trying to say that every time a lawyer makes a wrong choice, the defendant should get a do-over. The system just doesn't work that way. Maybe Adam's attorney did mess up, but that doesn't mean that Adam would have been acquitted.
Okay, so how does the state argue that?
The state can call their own expert to show that the cell phone evidence really is airtight. So who cares what questions Christina would have asked the expert at the first trial?
But how do you get around Randy Johnson? I mean, if someone sees Adam at the time the murder allegedly takes place, how is that not game over?
Well, someone says they saw Adam at that time, but that doesn't mean they really did.
Meaning?
The state can show Randy is unreliable, or that Randy is remembering a different day, or that for some reason, Randy just wouldn't have been believable in front of a jury.
So discredit the witness?
Yes. Or the state might show that they had other witnesses that provide solid evidence of guilt. A big deal if one witness says Adam was somewhere else.
You're talking about Morgan, right?
Yeah, Morgan's kind of hard to get around.
Morgan Reynolds is Adam's co-defendant and the star witness against him at trial. Morgan is the only person who links Adam to the body, claiming Adam confessed to the murder. Morgan even claims to have helped Adam bury the body in a shallow grave out in Olentangy Park. Adam's biggest doubters have always looked to Morgan as the strongest evidence of his guilt. I mean, why would someone lie about helping bury a body? Morgan gave details of the murder, the method, the burial, even some of the evidence the police should expect to find. The police would use Morgan's testimony paired up with Adam's cell records to reconstruct everything that happened on September 18th. Billy Stoneridge, the lead detective in Adam's case, used Morgan's interrogation to track down all the physical evidence the state has against Adam. Fibers, prints, even some hair from the victim. Stoneridge maintains to this day that adding it all up, the conviction was good. Period. I've spent the last year obsessing over this case. The details, the evidence, the players, and now it's time to find out what really happened. I'm breaking that barrier between the observer and participant. I'm stepping into the ring as an investigator, ready to show the court what I've found. Adam's attorneys will be calling me at trial, and I'll be telling the court about the things I've uncovered. So what do I think is going to happen? Stay tuned next time on Serial. Serial is produced by OCLRE with help from the 2018 Mock Trial Case Committee and the OCLRE sponsors. Studio production by Chris Lair and Stuart Williams, with special support from Kara Keating and John Shue. Support for today's episode comes from the Civility in Mock Trials Network. Civility counts, so don't be a jerk. For more, visit OCLRE.org.